You have a decision to make. It is not a big one, but 3 hours later, you are still inside it, turning it over, running every possible outcome, replaying conversations that have not happened yet, preparing for problems that may never arrive. And somewhere in the middle of all that mental activity, you realize you are exhausted, not from doing anything, from thinking. If that is familiar, here's what you need to know. Overthinking is not just an annoying habit, it's a neurological pattern with measurable consequences, and the longer it runs unchecked, the more damage it does to the very system you're using to think your way out of it. This video is going to show you exactly what is happening inside your brain when you overthink and what actually interrupts the cycle at the root level. Chapter 1. The neuroscience of overthinking and what it costs your brain. When you overthink, you're not using your whole brain equally. You're overwhelmingly activating one specific network called the default mode network. The default mode network is the system that runs when you're not focused on an external task. It handles self-reflection, mental simulation, and thinking about the past and future. In healthy doses, it's essential. It's where creativity lives. It's where you make sense of your experiences. But in people who overthink chronically, the default mode network gets stuck in a loop. Instead of moving through a thought and releasing it, the brain keeps returning to the same material, reprocessing it without resolution. Neuroscientists at Stanford who study rumination found that chronic activation of this network is directly linked to increased activity in the subgenial prefrontal cortex, a region consistently associated with depression and anxiety disorders. That's the first cost. Overthinking is not neutral mental activity, it's actively shaping the structure and chemistry of your brain in a direction that makes anxiety more likely, not less. The second cost is cognitive. Your prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for clear decision-making, working memory, and rational analysis, runs on a limited daily supply of glucose and neurotransmitters. Every cycle you spend replaying a scenario that has already passed, or pre-living one that may never arrive, is drawing from that tank. By the time you actually need to think clearly about something that matters, the tank is lower than it should be. You're not overthinking because your brain is too powerful. You're doing it because a specific circuit has been reinforced so many times that it now runs automatically, and it's quietly depleting the resources you need to function. Chapter 2. Why the brain overthinks and how to interrupt it. Here's what most people miss. Overthinking feels like problem solving. That's why it's so hard to stop. The brain experiences the act of analyzing a problem as movement towards safety, even when the analysis is circular and producing nothing useful. This is rooted in the threat detection function of the amygdala. When your brain flags something as uncertain or potentially dangerous, it recruits the default mode network to run simulations. What if this goes wrong? What if I said the wrong thing? What if I'm not ready? Each simulation feels like preparation, but without a defined endpoint, the loop just continues. The key insight from neuroscience research on rumination is this. The brain doesn't stop the loop because you've thought about something enough. It stops the loop when it receives a signal that the threat has been resolved or that attention has genuinely shifted to something concrete. That's where the actual solution lives, not in thinking harder or thinking better, but in giving the brain a different kind of input. The most well-supported interruption method in the literature is what researchers call implementation intention. Instead of telling yourself to stop overthinking, you give the brain a specific action attached to a specific trigger. When I notice I'm replaying this scenario, I will write down the one thing I can actually do about it today and then close the document. That specificity matters. Vague intentions to calm down or stop worrying don't register as resolution for the threat detection system. A concrete action does. It signals that the loop has produced an output and the brain can release it. Chapter 3. What chronic overthinking does to memory and sleep. Most people focus on the anxiety side of overthinking, but there is another cost that gets far less attention. Memory consolidation happens during sleep, specifically during the deep, slow wave and REM cycles. When you carry an active rumination loop into the night, it disrupts the architecture of sleep, even when you fall asleep easily. The brain continues processing the unresolved material instead of consolidating the day's learning and emotional experience. Over time, this produces a specific pattern. Overthinkers often report feeling like they are not retaining information as well as they used to. They struggle to recall details from earlier in the week. They feel mentally foggy despite getting a reasonable number of hours in bed. This is not imagination. It is the downstream effect of a brain that never fully powers down because the default mode network is still running its loop while the rest of the system is trying to restore. The research coming out of the Walker Lab at UC Berkeley on sleep and memory makes this clear. Emotional and cognitive restoration during sleep requires the brain to actually disengage from active problem states. Overthinking at night is not just affecting how you feel, it is affecting how well your brain can learn, adapt, and perform the following day. Chapter 4: The 24-Hour Reset for an Overthinking Brain. The goal is not to think less. The goal is to think on purpose. Here's your challenge for the next 24 hours. Every time you catch the loop starting, do one thing. Write the thought down, then write one sentence underneath it. What is the one concrete action available to me right now? If there is no action available, write that too. No action needed at this time. That single practice does two things simultaneously. It moves the thought out of the default mode network and into the prefrontal cortex, where it can be evaluated rather than just recycled. And it trains the brain over time to associate the onset of rumination with a shift toward resolution rather than continuation. Your brain is not working against you. It is running a pattern it learned, and patterns that were learned can be interrupted. If this explains something about the way your mind has been working, share this with someone who spends more time inside their head than they would like. They probably need to understand this more than they know. The next video is already there when you're ready.